Jacky, you were talking about your confused state at that particular time after the bathroom episode. Were you looking for some sort of comfort, like you would if you go to the doctors and you want somebody else that's got the same affliction as you and you can compare notes?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I wanted to find normal people who'd had angel experience, paranormal experiences, anything really. I just wanted to read about normal people. And I mean, I spent a fortune on books, really. It was very difficult. I mean, the library really was very slim pickings at that time. There was nothing out there. And I mean, my husband was brilliant. He worked with computers at that time, and he said to me, why don't you set up a website and get yourself on the internet? Well, we didn't know anybody at that time who had computers at home. I mean, people just didn't. It was very new. But he was a bit of a whiz kid, and he brought me a computer home from work and set it all up and got us on the internet. I mean, we were sort of paying per minute then. I think our first bill was something like £450 for the month. And I spent hours on the internet. But I was trying to find, you know, just ordinary people who'd had these types of experiences.
Did you find anybody?
Yes, I did. And I did create a website. I mean, the website was rubbish. I didn't have a clue what I was doing. And, you know, it's kind of one of these programs where you could do all sorts of things, add music, and I'd got angels flying all over the page. I mean, it was horrendous. But, you know, hey, we didn't know. It was the early stages. But what happened was it had the effect of getting people from all over the world who started communicating with me. And it was a relief, I think, to find people who had also had similar experiences. And people who were also saying, well, you won't believe me, but...
Yeah.
And then they'd tell me something, you know, similar and also a bit weird and offbeat. Or they'd say, or even more exciting, they'd say, I've never told anybody this before. And people like me had these sort of experiences, and very often just a one-off experience where they'd had some sort of angelic intervention in their life. And sometimes very simple things, sometimes very dramatic.
Yeah.
And they hadn't spoken to anybody about it because they were embarrassed, and they also thought that people would ridicule them. And I got that.
Did you get a sense of comfort to know that there was loads of you?
Yes, yeah. And also they were just normal people, and there were sort of men, women, children, all ages, all religions, and all over the world.
Yeah.
And the more I started to sort of talk to people about it, the more people would say, well, actually, I had an experience once, and I've never told anybody. And I realised that people, at that point, you know, it wasn't that people hadn't had these experiences, it was the fact that they didn't talk about them.
Right.
And really at that stage, you know, there wasn't such a lot of information, and people weren't talking about it. I mean, I kind of managed to get myself at that time a column in our local paper. I mean, they were very forward-thinking, actually, in which I started to write about the sort of experiences that people were telling me about that they'd had. I mean, I had to keep it very, you know, very simple. I didn't want to frighten people, and I certainly didn't want to come across as being a bit of a nutcase. And I remember going into our local pub one evening, and this guy coming over to me and saying, oh, I read your column in the local paper.
Yeah.
And my cat's just walked in, the cat's lap. Come on then, out you go. Go on, push off. Oh, bless. Attracted by the angels, you see. That's what it is. And he said, yes, I read your column. And I said, oh, thank you. Thank you very much. And he said, it's a load of rubbish, isn't it? And I laughed. And he said, no, well, come on then. He said, prove to me it's real. And we just had a joke about it. And I sort of said, well, you know, I can't. But we had a bit of fun. I was quite up for the humour. And he disappeared and had about 3 pints. And then he came back and he kind of looked furtively around. And then he said, you know, I had an experience once. And I couldn't believe it because, you know, sort of an hour earlier he'd been ridiculing me.
Yeah.
And then with some of his mates were out of earshot and he took the courage. He came over and told me about one of his own experiences. And I can't even remember what it was now, but I learned a big lesson that night.
What does an angel look like?
Well, that depends on who you are.
Right.
Traditionally, they are beings of light, so they're not like human beings, and they don't have bodies as humans do. However, having said that, I firmly believe that they come to us and they appear to us in a way that we are going to feel comfortable with. And I think for most people that would be that they would take on a human-type experience. And, I mean, years ago, if you go back and you look at traditional paintings, angels were always depicted as male. They were always shown as male, strong, powerful, protecting. Whereas nowadays, there's been a bit of a shift, and a lot of the modern artwork shows angels as being feminine, so caring and loving. And sometimes people will see them with wings. And I think, again, this goes back to the sort of Renaissance times where people expected that angels would need wings to be able to fly because they didn't understand the way that they moved, or that they would appear or disappear, which we feel now has more to do with the different dimensions, which, you know, science is only just starting to investigate.
Okay.
Children nearly always see female angels, unless they are in need of some protection, in which case the angel will then appear as male. Yeah, I just think it depends who you are. Sometimes people will see little twinkling lights and that sort of thing. So I think it does vary a lot from person to person. It's more a sense of what you feel like when you have that experience, I think.
So what would you say the difference is if you are a believer that the spirits of our dearly departed can come back? What's the difference between one of those and an angel? Yeah,
I mean, there is definitely a difference in that our departed loved ones, they are a soul, and it's the soul that continues after life, and those souls do communicate with us as well. And when people say to me, can my grandma be my guardian angel, then I would say, not in the traditional sense of a guardian angel, but is your grandma watching over you? Too right she is. I mean, I have so many stories, and I mean really thousands of stories, again, from all over the world, where people have heard or seen loved ones who've crossed over in moments of crisis or times of danger, when that love they've heard, you know, grandma's voice say slow down, stop the car, change direction or whatever, and it has saved their life or, you know, helped them in some way. So different types of appearances from different types of beings, but, you know, all still there for that, you know, positive good.